Hello, everyone. So I think I'm now live, and welcome to the Ascension Energy Forecasts for this week. And this week is going to be all about sensing energies. There's been a lot of energy coming through this week explaining how, well, not explaining, but hinting that something new is coming through. And that something new is what I want us to explore today, because I don't think it's what we all expect. So are you a deep thinking sensitive, being called to do something more? Do you feel dissatisfied with some parts of your life? Are you struggling to know in these uncertain times, are you struggling to make those decisions that you need to make to get more onto your path? Do you feel spiritually called to be something more, something bigger, but at the same time feeling stuck and wondering how do you get off your old path and onto the new one and become more soul aligned? So if you want to join me tonight, then I will be discussing this week's soul lesson. And I'll be sharing my own experiences and my own journey to try and help make it more practical to understand. And these are my experiences of the 5D quantum energies. So grab yourself a cup of tea and we'll start in a few minutes. I'll just give an introduction to the topic today and I'll just check that everything's all set up properly. So I can actually see comments on both of them now. So I've got, Jenny and Marta's messages coming through. Fantastic. So today's soul lesson will be all about contemplation. Now, if you've caught up on my last two videos, then you'll see that the first video was all about valuing your creative process. Last week, we spoke about obedience, and this week, contemplation. And I think that's pretty amazing because it's almost like if I was going to write what steps should you take to become more soul aligned or at least more aware of yourself and the new energetics that are coming in, these would be 3 pretty good steps, but I didn't think of them. They just came individually, one step at a time. And I'm explaining this because this is how I get my insights. When I got the first one saying value your soul, your creative process, I didn't know where we were going. Then when it came up with becoming more obedient, I still wasn't 100% sure where we were going. And then we got to this big contemplation. I thought, now I get it. Now I kind of see where this is going. And this is going to be what sensing energies is going to be for us all in the future. And that's why I wanted to explain that. So I've got comments on Zoom for those that have joined me on Zoom, and I've got comments on YouTube. So say hello and let me know how you've been with your energy sensing this month. I think it's going to be something that starts this month. It's kind of kicked in after equinox and it's going to build up. So it's going to be an ongoing thing. So don't expect kind of like fireworks and sparks immediately. It's going to be very subtle, I think, and it's going to be so subtle, if you're not careful, you'll miss it. And it's going to be different from what you've experienced before. So again, you can miss it. And that's why I wanted to kind of give some hints today to help us notice it more. So if you watched my last videos, then the first one was about valuing your creative process. And that is the first step of the process of sensing these energies this month. So if we know that the lesson this month is the contemplation, that's going to be the third step. Then what was the challenge of this month? It's going to be our lack of comparable experiences. Like I said, the not knowing that it's different, not knowing what to expect, not knowing how to look at it. It's going to be that kind of, I don't know even how to put that into words properly, but it's going to be that kind of feeling. So I've got a message saying it's an intense energy. It's intense, but it's also unusual. And I think that challenge of the lack of comparable experiences is going to make us doubt ourselves more, which is why we need to trust ourselves more. And that's why I think the obedience came in. And the strength for this week is going to be community. The only way we're going to get through all of this is through community and sharing and talking to each other, because the more we do that, the more we will have something to compare with. We have to build our own database now of experiences, a new database, a new knowledge base of experiences that we can all hook into and say, oh, I'm glad you mentioned that because I kind of saw that, but I wasn't sure that's what it was. And community is the way we're going to share those stories. Okay, so I've got 5 steps to go through and I've got an itchy nose for some reason. That's used to be my friend Moira used to come in and itch my nose when she wanted to talk to me. So contemplation is the main message today, but let's just go through the 5 steps that we've got. So if we know then that this month is going to be all about upgrading our sensing abilities, this is beyond the clairs. This isn't just necessarily saying somebody's going to get clairvoyant or clairsentient or claircognizance. It's not necessarily that we're talking about now. However, I like the simpler translation of those in that it's clear thinking, clear knowing, clear seeing, clear hearing. If we focus it like that, then the clarity that you've been getting is going to shift. And that also means as well that it's going to be a different type of knowledge that's going to come in. So if you've been clairvoyant up until now, you're going to notice maybe that your visions might change, or your the information you're getting might shift, maybe from being spiritual messages to galactic messages, for instance. Or you might find that you hear more of the earth messages coming through. So you'll start noticing a shift in the clarity and the type of messages you're getting as well. You'll also notice that the memories are not going to be new. It's almost like they've always been there and you're going to suddenly remember them. And then you're going to look at them with new eyes and go, oh, that's what that meant, which is what I kind of said to you the way it's been for me this month. You know, I had 3 steps to go through. And when I started to the first step that I was guided to talk about, I didn't know where it was going. It was only when I got to the 3rd step that I could finally see what the connection was going to be. So that's going to be part of what we're trying to manage. So it's kind of uncertain, but in a way it's more in flow, and it's actually more exciting because I don't know about you guys, but I just like it when I've got something new to play with. Like when I was learning about obedience last week, I was super excited. I've been down several rabbit holes, including the other word that came up was conviction. So I've had loads of really interesting conversations on conviction. And for me, that's learning and growing, and that makes my work exciting. And that's what we're looking for, is that kind of energy behind what's coming in. So like I said, it's not going to be all fireworks. It's going to be this kind of feeling. So the first step, the creative process, was all about solar light upgrades coming in. And it was about, if you can't recognize your creative process, then you'll be less likely to spot these new energies. Does that make sense? So if this resonates with you guys, then put a comment in and I'll read out your comments as we go. So this is about really tuning in to your creative process. So do you find that you get messages, like I said, from Earth or from the cosmic realm, from the galactic realm? Have you noticed a shift in that? Have you noticed that when it's to do with work, it comes from the goddess realm? When it's to do with your life, it comes from the galactic realm? This is part of the kind of process that we are expanding into. And the more we can connect to that, then the more we'll notice the changes in that area, and the more we'll be ready to say, yes, that's new. And that's a new way for me, and to be able to notice it and value it. Because when we value something, then we do spend more time learning about it. If we let it be just in our daydreams and in our dream time, then we're not going to necessarily value what is said. We'll just think it was one little hiccup or one missed bit of information. But there's a huge jigsaw piece, puzzle being filled in right now, and we've been dropped the pieces not in the right order. So understanding your creative process, and there's a video I did 2 weeks ago on that, that's going to be critical to understanding what energies are coming in this month. So Jenny's saying, sounds exciting. And I've got check in on YouTube here. I just realized I can't scroll that. That's cool. So the second step was last week's message, which was obedience. So obedience was all about spiritual obedience to your soul. And it was about listening and not turning away. And that goes back to what I was just saying, that you might have a dream, you wake up, you think, wow, that was wonderful, but then you do nothing about it. You turn away from it. It's up to you now to choose what action you want to take. It's up to you whether you choose to ignore some information, whether you choose to investigate it, whether you choose to integrate it, whether you choose to act on it. And again, that goes back to your creative process. Do you recognize when you're going through each of those steps to get to the end of this? And the third step then is where we're at now, which is the contemplation. So contemplation is about really finding a state that you're in where you can have this connection to a deep inner knowing. It's being able to sit in silence and then start hearing or feeling or sensing, whichever cognizance is yours, starting to notice how that energy is coming in. It's about allowing it to unfold, even when there's no matter there or no physical thing to kind of cling to. So you might see an image of a cloud or a color, but it's not a obvious kind of reading, like a picture of a card or a house or a building or a specific message, Because if this is your new way of listening, then it can come through just as energetic colors or frequencies. So it's about finding a place to contemplate and then just noticing every single thought, memory, color, even spiritual attacks, or what you might class as a spiritual attack. Anything that pops into your head randomly. Like when I'm working with people, sometimes they say to me, oh, sorry, you asked me to go to this particular location in my mind, and instead this popped into my head. That's not a coincidence. That's part of the story. And that's part of our creative process. When we know that, then we can honor it and we can respect it. We can then apply the obedience in that we don't turn away from it and say, oh, sorry, that's random thought popped up, and then push it aside. We now welcome it in as all pieces of our jigsaw puzzle. And that's what contemplation is all about. It's about sitting in a space and allowing everything to have meaning. Doesn't matter where it's come from. And that's going to be hard for some of us because we've been, like one of the things now, there's more and more people having attention deficit disorder. And to me, sometimes that's more to do with this ability to pick up on all these different frequencies, but we don't have the creative process on how to put it together or the obedience on how to understand it. But if we can work out this process, then all these new frequencies that are coming in are going to be easier for us to interpret and manage. So part of this contemplation, like I said, is there's going to be this retrocognizance phase. And I've already started noticing it's kind of like really ancient memories of, well, just of this lifetime suddenly pop up. And I'm like, why am I thinking about that? And then suddenly the thought process runs down this little rabbit hole and comes out the other end. And I'll go, whoa, I didn't see the value of that before. So I've noticed a few people that I've spoken to have said this, and we were wondering what it was representing. And I think it's this retrocognizance, is that it's like we've gone through the equinox and we've had a whole bunch of layers of clothing taken off and veils lifted up off of us. But now when we look at our own life, it's almost like we don't recognize it. We're not looking at it with the same eyes and the same perception. And that is part of the jigsaw puzzle. That's part of the new energies sensing that is coming through this month. So you can see how you could accidentally think that was just your brain playing tricks on you, remembering old stuff, and not see it as part of the new energies that are coming in this month. So it's like new doorways are being opened up in our head so that we can see things with a different perspective. And that's going to allow us to move forward in a different way. So I'm just going to read the comments quickly. So I realize I need to make more time to follow through on insights I'm given. Excellent. That's a really good idea because, like I said, we're so quick to put them to bed right now, but the manifestation powers are so much stronger now. So if you can focus on what is coming in as these new energies, these new downloads, your new ways of communicating with your soul and your higher self and the universe even, then you're going to be in a better position to take that forward into action and into a business, into a new endeavor, into a new hobby. It's there because it wants you to take it into the physical and do something with it. So after we got the retrocognizance, the other aspect that I've been talking about now since last year is reforging. There's been a lot of a shift from releasing negative energies. And I feel like we were always told, oh, just let it go, send it out to the universe, send it out to be transmuted, all this negative energy. However, I was sitting there one day, and this is how my brain works. So this is totally my creative process. And I suddenly think, so they say in law of attraction that a negative in front of what you want is stronger than the positive. And yet there we are giving away all of our negative energy. So there must be some power in it. And where does it go once you give it all away? So what I started doing was reforging it and imagining that, and reforging was, imagine like a sword in a fire being reformed. So you put the metal in, you remelt it down, you create another object out of it that gives you a new tool for the future. And you can do the same with your own negative energies too. You can put them in, you can throw away the bits you don't want, but what's left can be quite an insightful gift. And it can be that gold from the experience that you thought was really negative. It can be that nugget of gold that is what we wanted to learn for the future. Now, one of the things I've noticed with people who are super powerful or have had some big energetic experiences in past lives, maybe at the fall of Atlantis, or other ancient civilizations or witch moons, anybody who's got memories like that, they usually tend to go hand in hand with a difficult life. You usually find that they've had so many issues pop up in their life, whether it be health, people that are not supportive, whether it be things not turning out as they hoped. And again, I started noticing a pattern, thinking, if that is happening to other people that I know are quite strong and powerful, then what is going on underneath? And that's been my life. For many years, I had lots of spiritual attacks, lots of downloads. I couldn't make sense of any of it. It was all pretty weird. And I believe that I get a little bit, my stuff comes a little bit earlier than it comes to the masses. So I get time to sit with it and practice with it and learn it then, so I can talk to you guys about it. But I noticed that these problems kind of weren't going away. It doesn't matter what we did, what spiritual practice I tried, what advice I took, they weren't going away. When I started looking at them from a reforging and a retrocognizance point of view, I noticed that when I looked back at some of these situations, there was some pretty amazing gold dust hidden amongst those attacks and those difficult situations. And they weren't necessarily to do with my life this time, because I get a lot of galactic downloads, so it makes it a bit more interesting to translate. But some of the stuff I was told, like about the Garden of Eden and the Big Bang, trying to think of some of the other weird ones, that Earth is a slave world to learn self-worth. You know, I was wondering, why are they telling me all this? What's this going to do with me? But now when I look back, I can see that they were some of the, not that they weren't true then. I think we've shifted into a new era where those are no longer true, and we can now choose what we want instead as our story. But if I hadn't been told those in the first place, then I wouldn't be creating some of the techniques that I'm creating now. Reforging wouldn't be something I was doing if I hadn't have gone back and looked at those attacks with different eyes. So that's what contemplation means to me, is that really taking that Alice in Wonderland roll down the rabbit holes. I don't know, how many of you guys do that? You know, you get one little tiny insight and then you spend 24 hours on Google and searching and researching it and trying to connect to what it actually means. So we've got Angela saying, I'm trying to share my gifts with the community through my art and my, foot care. I was going to say, covered up then, foot care services. However, no one seems interested since last November. Yeah, I think what you'll find is that all of us said at the end of last year, something stopped. Nobody was interested for a little while in what we were doing. And then it came back on again. And I think we were unplugging from the old timeline, rechanging who we are, and then plugging back in again. So you might find that was just this kind of, it was really this kind of a moment to come away and come back in again. And it was interesting at that time, we were getting the message that keep faith, keep going forward. Even if you're not seeing the results that you're expecting, it is still moving forward way better than you think. That was that period of time that we got that message. So that fits in really nicely to that. So Jenny's saying same. Jenny loved reforging down the rabbit holes. Yay, we got 2 more rabbit hole hunters. And Marta's going, Indiana Jones. Yes, that is what we're going to be, because if we keep looking back at all the hard things that happened to us and the spiritual attacks, then what does that leave you? It leaves us in a sort of victim consciousness. If we have to think about putting up protection, it leaves us in a victim consciousness, because only victims need protection. Alchemists don't need protection because they know how to handle the energy. It's just a normal day. So I started switching from that kind of like feeling like I was always under attack, and started thinking that, why am I having that experience constantly? And started instead looking for the messages. And I noticed that when I started doing that, the attacks got less. So what I was going to say about the retrocognizance, and this might be a bit out there, so I'll just tell it as it's come through to me. So it kind of felt like we know that we're all in that kind of waiting room of life, wanting to come back onto Earth. And while we're sitting there, we're going, who wants the experience of, who wants to understand themselves from the perspective of this experience? And then we ask, who wants to come with me and help me have that experience? And then we come back to Earth, and we come back, and through that birthing experience, we forget. And then we get tied up in the drama of Earth. We get wound up by the people around us. We forget why we're here. So I thought, if that was me and I had a mission, if I had a really important mission and I had to come back to Earth, and I wanted to make sure that I did that mission, because I've tried a few times now and it hasn't worked out because I keep forgetting, then, you know, think of those movies that are, what are the movies, you know, where they end up like having Groundhog Day and they write notes on their wrists so they remember when they come back in and what they were doing. You know, we've all seen those movies. I can't remember the names of them now, but imagine that life's a bit like that. And then we come back to Earth, we forget. What can I give myself that will help me remember what I'm here to do? And it's the hardships, because if our life was good, we wouldn't look, we wouldn't go outside ourselves, we wouldn't examine the world, we'd be happy in our little bubble and carry on as we are. However, if I was to set up experiences, like challenging experiences, like A, B, C, D, E, go through each of these, and hopefully the experience will help you remember your mission through that, then it would make sense why those that are more spiritually aware, who have been through many lifetimes, have got more difficult lives. Now, this is just my kind of initial kind of thinking on this. I haven't gone deeper than that. This is where I've got to so far. And I think the energies this month is that kind of helping you look back on those hardships, is that process, is us looking back to say, well, actually, now let's look at all of our difficult times, all of our challenges, even our spiritual attacks, and ask the question, if I was planning my life, why would I plan these things to happen to me? And what are they trying to remind me of? And then once you learn the lesson of it, then that challenge should technically go away. Now, I've spent years, like I said, trying to fix challenges, trying to remove challenges, trying to protect myself from challenges. I've done all of the things, try to be like even mitigate the challenge from even happening in the first place. And yet they were still happening. And it, like, I just remember sitting there with one of my colleagues who we were working a lot for the last 10 years. And we'd say, like, this could be a comedy sketch. It's kind of like, everybody says, wow, that never happens. We've never seen that happen, but it happens to you. Or we've never seen this go this way before. How did this happen to you? And I'm sitting there going, well, but now if we put it in the context of they were lessons and part of my mission, it kind of makes more sense. So what have we got in the comments? So I'm guessing Angela's saying, Jenny's saying same, Angela saying yes. And we've got Jenny saying, yes, makes a lot of sense. I resonate with that one. I wouldn't be here connected to, oh yeah, she wouldn't be here connected with me if it wasn't for her hardships. Marta saying makes sense, total sense, going through traumas to remember the empowering yourself. And that's exactly what I think is happening. Now, I could be wrong, but personally, I'm one of these people who thinks, well, I haven't tried that before, so I might as well try that approach and see if that will fix it, because everything else I've tried didn't fix it. So if I go through and see each of those as clues to my mission, my vision, why I'm here at this time, then I'm quite excited by that. And if it doesn't work, then I'll retune and try again. But that's my current thinking, and that's what I'm working with right now. Yes, to have more compassion and to expand more. Cool. So that's the kind of contemplation part. That's what the card was bringing in today for us to think about. That was what the energy wanted us to know today. So there's a couple of other aspects. So in contemplation, to make it effective, like I said, we need step 4, which is learning your language of your soul. So that is like, how are you going to leave secret messages for yourself? What language is it in? What memories have you got from past lives that they might use to help make sense of something coming in? And once you know your unique frequency, that helps put a context. So I'm helping people on their soul vision and on their soul alignment. So I know that every message I receive will be to do with that. And if I didn't know it before, which I didn't, then when I look back now, knowing that, I can now, with the retrocognizance, I can now see all the pieces. My first tarot deck was a soul tarot deck. Didn't realize it at the time or the relevance of it, but I knew everyone else was doing the normal Rider-Waite tarot, and I didn't like that one. I ended up with the soul one. Then when I started doing full moon soul journeys with astrology archetypes, I didn't go for the sun signs. I went for the esoteric soul journey. And it's not something that like popped up immediately. It wasn't something I consciously thought to do. It was just by accident, which kind of shows that my mission was seeping through in all my experiences. And that way it allowed me now to understand more of my unique frequency, which helps me now to go back again and look at everything else now with this new magnifying glass. And then again, it'll refine, it'll change a little bit. I'll add a bit more to it. And again, I can look back again and pull the next layer out. So knowing your language of your soul will really make a difference too. And that comes from literally all of your aspects, not just your spiritual work, but every job you've done, everything you wanted to do, every desire, every hobby, all of these are parts of the clues to telling you what your mission is at this time. Love that mission seeping through. Thanks, Jenny. So the thing is, you hear me doing these talks and you might all think this is what sensing energy is like. No, this is what sensing energy is like for me. This is my sensing energy only. Yours will be completely different. Don't let my way of doing it stop you feeling brave enough to show yours. We all have a different view of the same thing, and that might be opposing, or at least on the surface it might seem opposites. Definitely speak about it. Please don't give up on it, because I find the common thread between all of these different views, and then it makes more sense, which is why I'm encouraging people to share, which is why community is our strength. Because the more people share, even on what I've shared now about life being this kind of way of getting our mission, if people start sharing on that, it'll help me prove it or disprove it or refine it as I go. But without extra feedback from other people, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm still within my own perception and my own view of what I've got. So there's much more power in everybody joining in and sharing their beliefs. So there's a story about 3 blind men and an elephant. And one blind man has got his hands around the leg of the elephant and he says, "It's a tree." Another blind man's got his hand on the tail and says, "It's a broom." And somebody else has got their hands around the trunk and says, "It's a snake." None of them are wrong and none of them are right. And the moral of the story is that one person's subjective truth may not be another's truth, let alone the whole truth, or even part of the truth. And when we think like that, then I'm hoping that'll give us all more courage and more bravery to express the smallest snippets of information that fall into our minds. And I said to you a couple of weeks ago, you know, when I was sharing step 1 and step 2, I didn't know where it was going. I do that because by sharing that, I'm hopefully triggering somebody else to have their realization that is needed off the back of that. And yes, we don't know how all our pieces are going to fit together yet, but if I don't share it, if I wait until I know it, then I wouldn't share it. It would take too long and we'd miss our opportunity. And that trust in, I don't know it, but I know that little tiny piece and I'm going to share that, is what we all have to get braver at doing. So how does that sound to you guys? Have you found that you don't share parts of your story, or you wait until it's completely understood before you can put it out into the world then? Because I know that a lot of us are perfectionists because of our energy sensing. We sense other people's energies a lot, and therefore we don't, we're kind of like sense their reaction before we finish our sentence, and that stops us finishing what we're saying. And what I want us to do is just to carry on anyway. And I've been in front of people saying some of the weirdest stuff. When I first started sharing this stuff, I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is going to sound so strange to everyone. And then afterwards, not during, everybody was too shy during, they left me hanging and worrying while we were doing the talk. Afterwards, they all came up to me individually. I went, oh my God, you said this and it resonated. And I went, wow. So if I'd gone with what I felt at the time, I'd have not shared anything. I'd have stopped the conversation and ended it and closed down the live I was doing. But it showed that people were resonating with it, but they weren't speaking about it. So it's about us really getting into our creative process, knowing that there's this bigger story unfolding through us, and it's our story, and it doesn't have to match anybody else's, and it doesn't have to be the same as anybody else's. So that's going to be the key for these new energies that we're going to be sensing. So the last step is taking back your power. And this is simply, you have done this before. Like I said, you know, coming back with leaving ourselves little breadcrumbs so we remember again. You have done this before, so trust that you know how to do it again this time, and trust that you know how to refine this process. And at first, it might seem messy, but once this process starts, you've got to imagine like your soul is super excited. It's like, oh my God, they're finally getting it. They understand. Throw everything down the pipe at them so they've got everything in one go. And then it's like overload, it's too much, and it comes too fast or it comes too quick. And that's okay, because you can go back and ask them to slow it down and try again. You know, whatever's meant for you doesn't just disappear when you miss it. You do get a second chance. So you can just concentrate on what comes through, again, like noticing, remember that contemplation, just noticing what comes in. If it comes in quickly, go, okay, that was a lot. Come back another day and tune in and see if you can pick up a piece at a time. And that's, you've done for millennia. You know, if you've come back to this planet multiple times, if you've been in different star seeds, it doesn't matter. You've got this experience, and that's your strength. So don't give up on it. And I just want you to say, you know, don't let the mess put you off, and don't let the lack of all these different feelings fool you into thinking that nothing's changed. because a lot of people have kind of said to me that I feel more clear on my vision, but it doesn't feel any different. Or I didn't have a big wow factor when that came in. Does that mean it's not that big? Don't let those feelings discourage you. It's coming in very subtle ways, and it's going in piece by piece, building up the infrastructure until one day it'll connect together, and you will constantly have these slight ups and downs as you go through the building process. So don't be put off by the fact that it doesn't feel like anything now. Give yourself space and time just to enjoy the journey and see where it goes, because I've just got 3 really useful steps and I didn't know where I started 3 weeks ago. So oh, we got messages here. We've got delighted. Oh, I'm definitely one that normally waits, perfectionist. Yeah. So hopefully you're going to change that now. Yes. I'm trying to learn not to wait. Good. Glad to know there's a second chance. I couldn't keep up. Yeah. So my flowers came through one after another. Yeah. Well, when we get that communication going, it gets excited and it wants to throw it all at you. Just go back and ask it to come through more slowly. And I think like some of my messages that came through 10 years ago that honestly, I had no clue what they were trying to tell me. I thought it was an attack at the time. Now I finally get it. And admittedly, I loved, like I keep saying this one, but Sherlock Holmes had this movie, like a TV program on Netflix. And in this particular version of Sherlock Holmes, he's there telling them, I've worked it out. This is how it all works. This, led to that, led to this. And the woman says to him, you really enjoy being the center of attention doing this. And she says, and everybody's so grateful to you because everyone enjoys a linear orgasm. When all the pieces fall into place, a linear orgasm. And that's kind of what we're dealing with. We want that linear orgasm, but unfortunately we have to go through the mess to get there. But it's worth the wait. It definitely is worth the wait. And hopefully that'll give you an idea then of what to expect this month and how these energies are going to come in and how your sensing abilities need to be fine-tuned to pick them up a little bit more the subtle changes first, and see how that builds up for you. What we got here. I find the more I up level and expand my consciousness, the more tests come in and the low vibration energies come through my loved ones. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. We're running out of time now for energy attacks, but one question I would ask about energy attacks, which I had to ask myself, and it may help others to think like this, was that if we have free will and we're getting energy attacks, then who set up the energy attack? And yes, we sometimes get tricked and we get manipulated, but remember, we were in that waiting room waiting for that experience, and we came in and we chose the family members we wanted to work with. So what were we trying to remind ourselves or teach ourselves at that time? And again, it's going back from being a victim to being empowered. I started looking at the energy attacks from a different perspective, and that allowed me to I negotiate with darker energies. I sit down and say, okay, why are you doing this? What do you want to do? And what is it doing? Like, what have I agreed to? What's it stopping me from being exposed to by being in this relationship? And by working that way, I'm finding I'm able to negotiate different deals, but also understand why I was fearful of something and set this up and in motion to try and stop me moving forward. So at the moment, the the Atlanteans are very prominent at the moment. And of course, their civilization fell with all of the science and the spirituality shifts. And that's coming back for a lot of people right now. And that can be causing a lot of what seems to be energy attacks underneath. Because if we felt that we were so powerful before and it all came crashing down, we might have put certain protection in place to stop us becoming powerful again. For example, we might have chosen not to want to be powerful because of what happened in the past. But that's a longer conversation for another day. But I just wanted to give a slight touch on that. So cool. So I've run over a little bit. Sorry, guys. So there was just one last bit. Thursday, which is the 20th, I am doing a workshop with my membership members. It's for my advanced team normally, but it's I'm going to be creating a space to help us tune into these energies, but more on a personal level, and guiding people through questions and through asking questions about what they're feeling, what they're sensing, to try and help people connect to their new energies. So I'll be doing that on Thursday. So normally it's part of my full membership, but given the energies this week, I thought I'd offer 10 places out. If somebody just wanted to join us for that workshop on its own, then let me know. And it's going to be £44 for the workshop, and there'll be a replay. And if you're interested in joining me for that, then send me a message, and I'll get in touch. I'll have to kind of do like an interview process just to make sure, because this is an advanced session, and there's some aspects that it's good to know about before we go into it, so that it doesn't drag the others down. So if that sounds interesting to you, then let me know. So that's the 20th Thursday. It's 8:30 British Summer Time. So that's the time we normally do, and it's about an hour and a half. And next week, I'm not going to be able to do a live. I unfortunately have got my own challenge this week. I've got a hospital appointment that I have to go to, which again is really interesting for me because it's been on the cards for the last year and a half, maybe even 2 years maybe. And it's finally come through. So I'm kind of thinking, on one hand, it feels like it's some energy shifting finally. I'll get to know what happened and why I've got these issues. On the other hand, I'm asking, what is the relevance of it now, and trying to do that deep dive and doing the process that I described to you now, not turning away from it, not thinking it's something to be fixed, accepting it's part of my journey, connecting to it, connecting to my body, and all those other aspects as well. So what I might try and do is a pre-recording for that, and I'll post that next Monday. And the week after, just so you know in advance, we will be doing our Ascension forecast with my guests, my galactic sisters, Ava and Alicia. The three of us will be back that week. So I hope you all enjoyed tonight. If there's any comments, then please keep adding them to the posts so I can come back and watch them later and answer you. I've answered everybody. I've had some amazing conversations in the comments with various people who are sharing their insights on this. So that's cool. And I'll see you all. So for us, it'll be the first week of May. Then I'll see you live, and I'll post you something next week. So thank you all for listening. I'm going to spend some time with those on Zoom now. So those on Zoom, don't leave. We're going to have a chat in more detail. And thank you to everybody that spent time with me going live today. So thank you, guys. And I'll just say